it's Jay from the Player2 Monthly Games Club. This month it's my game. We're going to be doing Killer 7. In case you're unaware, Killer 7 hails from 2005. It was actually one of the legendary Capcom 5 games that Capcom wanted to bring to the industry to shake it up a little bit because they thought it was a little stagnant at the time. It's also the game that pulled one of my favourite game, I guess, directors, producers, whatever you want to call him, Suda51 or Koichi Suda of Grasshopper Manufacture into the Western spotlight. It was his first sort of Western release. He then went on to another one of my favourite games, No More Heroes. Killer 7, in short, is pretty strange, to be honest with you. It basically kind of throws caution to the wind. It doesn't really follow many game conventions, but if you were to use modern game terminology, I guess you would call it an on-rails adventure neo-noir experience. Pretty moody soundtrack, lots of characters, all that sort of stuff. Basically, this game has a lot of testicular fortitude to be very different, and it's unabashedly so. Few things about this game are normal. You either love this game or you hate this game. And this game fights the flow. It swims upstream. It flips the bird to the system, really, especially the games of the time. It's wildly unafraid to be different, and it's unapologetic about doing so. For all these reasons, I adore this game, and that's why we're playing it this month. So without further ado, here's the discussion we had about it.
Welcome to the latest Player2 podcast. This is the latest entry of the Video Games Club. I'm your host, Paul James. I'm joined by Jay Parnas.
Yes.
And Damo Camilleri. Jay, I'll throw it over to you because this month it's your game.
This month it is all mine, and this month I have, as you can see in front of you, if it's actually in shot, we have, in front of me, that's good. I brought to the club Killer 7. I know these guys play the GameCube version, which I've heard is the superior of the two. That's just the copy I had, which I lent around. So look, I'd like to start, walking away from Killer 7, I'd like to ask you both this. What the hell is Killer 7? Or basically, to put it more simply, how would you classify this game?
You want to kick things off?
Well, yeah, I'd like to kick things off because I think your answer will just, I'll be sitting there going, yeah, whatever he said. Shit,
Probably, yeah.
That's a tricky question. I don't know, would you call it, it's not like it's like a horror adventure game, in a sense. Like, with elements of first-person shooters. And, like, is that where we're going? Like, genre? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah.
I guess, you'd say like a horror adventure game with, first-person shooter elements would be my interpretation.
Well, yeah, look, I'd agree with that sort of definition of it. Like, and we'll get to it shortly. I'm not a massive fan of the game, but that definition pretty well fits my impression of what they were going for with it as well.
Sure.
So,
So my interpretation, and you can determine whether you guys think it's right, definitely on point with adventure game. That's one of the words I was going to use. So it's kind of a neo-noir on rails adventure game. Yes, it does have some first-person shooting, but it's like, manual targeting from any of the old sort of 64 games. So it's not really like first-person shooter.
Yeah.
It's like you enter that sort of mode. You know what I mean? It's like saying, any other sort of side scroller that's got like a 3DS sort of port that has like that sort of, that sort of thing. I was just curious because it is definitely a tough one to classify because it is more of a genre bender, so to speak. Because it's not really...
No, it doesn't neatly fit into any one particular genre.
Which I actually...
In the conventional sense, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's actually probably to its credit, because if it was just another one of those... Because it is so sort of out there, I think if it was just like a lot of other games, it wouldn't really leave a mark, So I also wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think of the visuals? It's been 11 years since the game came out. Cell shading usually does stand up pretty well. I mean, we're two generations past now. Because obviously that was for the GameCube PS2. So we are now 2 generations on. How do you guys think it stands up, the art style?
I actually think that held up alright. As you said, kind of cel-shaded or even pixel art stuff, it doesn't age as badly as games that go for hyper-realism in any way, because it gets exposed by newer technology.
Yeah.
Not Hyperlight Drifter. I've got different games on my mind. Killer 7. Yeah, holds up fine visually.
Do you think so?
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. Like, it did really well, like in graphical wise. Like, it's just like it's a nice change of pace. Really, like, I mean, I do like a cell shaded game.
I mean, you do have to think, like, back then. When did Wind Waker come out? What year? Was that 2005 as well?
2004.
2004.
I feel like.
So
I'll double check.
So a similar period.
So what year was Killer 7 out?
2005. I mean, its development started 2002, I think. It was actually part of the sort of legendary Capcom 5, of which Beautiful Joe was also part of, another sort of very famous cel-shaded game.
Yeah, and that looks gorgeous.
Yeah, still. Oh man, that game still looks amazing.
Wind Waker was 2003.
2003. Okay, I didn't.
2002 in Japan.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that probably helped. I think probably get that sort of graphical style out there a little bit more. Obviously, in one of our early videos that we did with another establishment, we did Jet Set Radio, which started the trend.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see how it's come a long way. Like anime games these days owe a lot to games like Wind Waker and Jet Set Radio. So, yeah, I personally thought they stood up quite well.
Yeah, no, it does. It does a good job of it. Like, it's it's like it's almost like one of those games that less was better. Like, because it gave this really cool sense in what was going on around your surroundings and things like that. Like, you
when
know,
there was detail, it was like
it was
stood out.
Yeah, like the level you were playing before, where you're going down the like alleyways and things like that.
Yeah, to be fair, your TV was not doing, or at least the setup that we had here was not. It was very sort of washed out. There is a bit more detail in that, but yeah, you're right.
But like,
when there is detail, it's
and
totally sticks out.
It kind of felt like, I mean, because I watched a recent anime called Gangster, and I just realised that looked very visually similar. Like, who knows if it's got a small amount of influence, but it did. They kind of stated that like less is better, and it does just give you this really cool effect of what's happening around you without having to, you know. You can go on your Easter eggs and stuff, but it's there. So yeah, it did well.
So I'm going to move on a little bit because I know this is potentially a contentious issue for at least one of the streamers. I'll just give you a bit of a look. So controls, good or bad, and whatever you answer, why? So I'll start with you, Dan. I know some stuff about what you're going to say, or at least in the ballpark of. So I'm curious to know what you had.
Well, because like. I never had a GameCube, so I was like, okay, getting used to the controller, and it was like, well, it's not that bad. Like, you know, I don't want a GameCube controller. And then, like, you know, in that game, it was like, at the start, I was like, whoa, this is really different. The rail system, like, you know, turning and things like that. I was like, wasn't sure, you know, I was going to like it. And then, like, I think by the halfway through the second mission, it's just kind of really started to flow like second nature. Like, you just can't, I got just used to it. Like, I wasn't nowhere near as quick as what I was watching you do before. Like,
and to be fair, like, I've not played that game in years.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, that was, like I said before, like, I had some moments of just pure muscle memory.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, bang, bang, bang. And I'm like I even surprised myself. Because it's one of those sorts of games where, so if you've not played Killer 7, the way that it works is it's definitely, so you've got your character in a third person perspective, and you're on rails basically. So you actually press the A button to run forward, and you'll come to sort of intersections, and you flick your control stick in the direction of which intersection you want to go. It's been compared to Myst, games like that from ye old days. And you press your B button to do a quick 180 and all that sort of stuff. So and then you press your R button, and you go into sort of like a manual targeting type of first-person mode that we sort of spoke about before. So that's how basically that works. So it's definitely different. Like, seeing a character in third-person in 3D space, with games these days, your first instinct, I would say, would be to run around. Like, do your little sort of donuts,
Mario
I suppose.
64 sort of
your little run circles.
3D.
Yeah. And so sort of taking that away, at least when I first played it, it was definitely a shock to the system. I think I adapted probably about the same as you did, Damo, maybe a little faster.
Yeah.
Because I dicked about in the first mission quite a lot. There's with the dude that drops the eggs. I fucked around there for maybe a good 20 minutes just trying to grind up some blood, which you use for currency. Okay, let me have it. Let's see what's going on.
Look, I get the on rails thing. There was possibly different ways they could have mapped the controls to that, like pressing a button to turn around didn't gel with me whatsoever.
Yeah, see, I knew this was coming, and I told you a couple of days ago. I have 2 words.
You've hinted something.
I have, yes. So you had a gripe with there being a button to do the 180.
Yeah.
Now,
and the only, like, to be clear, I do get that it was on rails game, and that's kind of something they're going for, but I feel like the on rails thing was an unnecessary feature there.
The reason that it was
it works for what it is.
I did some reading up on this. The reason I actually went for that was actually late in the development cycle, because the game is designed to be like a noir, or like a neo-noir style game.
Yeah, they don't want you to miss that.
That's right. They want to sort of help you, walk you through the story, which a lot of noir stuff does. So it's a very wise design choice, at least in my opinion. Now, in terms of having a button to do a 180, sir, have you ever played Resident Evil?
4.
Any of
I've
four?
played 4,
Fine.
and I haven't played it through to completion.
And there is a 180 button in that game, and it is a third-person game, so you can actually turn in that game. You can do donuts, and it still has a 180. This is a game where you are constantly moving forward, and pressing the B button is the only way that you can go in the backwards direction. So 2 words: Resident Evil. And that's been around since the PlayStation.
Yeah, no, I'm not like I'm.
So look, I'm not trying to stamp out your opinion. I understand.
I'm not a big Resident Evil fan either. So.
I understand. But look, back in the old days, Resident Evil was tank controls. It was like move forward and then turn. So you need a 180. So that's fine. I'm not trying to stamp out your gripe with it. But this is not the first game to do that.
No, not at all.
But it's one of the first games I can think of where you've got an on rails and you have a quick feature like that. In games like Myst, you had to turn 90 degrees and then turn 90 degrees again, which was like a button press. So, I mean, again, they're more adventure.
It's kind of a step up from that, I guess.
Exactly. So that's...
You know, for me, it's only a case of, like, it's just something that doesn't gel with me. So it's like those Resident Evils I wouldn't have enjoyed for similar reasons, just because it's like personal preference sort of thing there.
But then again, so I'm not sure how you played it, but you saw me having a crack at it a little earlier. And sort of
look, you could tell
doing the sprinting
your way around the game more, so kind of there was more of a flow to what was going on.
Yeah, and that comes with
me. I was going in blind, so.
Well, I mean, that just came from playing it.
Like I pressed this, and I it just. I don't know.
Were there any other controller gripes that you had, or any other?
Well, no, I was going to say we just tapped on movement on that one, didn't we? Like, I mean, gun controls are pretty cool. Like when you go into the first person, each character has their own different, styles and things like that.
Yeah, the way they
even movement. When it comes to movement of the characters, each one of them has their different pros and cons, almost in a sense.
Yeah, and I had no gripes with any of that.
Yeah, that was all cool. I liked all that too. But I didn't, no real gripes to me. It was just different, and I liked it. I mean, sometimes it was refreshing. If I'm going to be using that term a lot. Because there is quite a few things I've been doing that is refreshing.
No, like that element thing is good. Different is a good thing. Just in this particular case, it's just not something
yeah.
I think that's going to be the thing. Like, I'm not going to sit here and rag on the game because ultimately the only reason I didn't enjoy it is because it doesn't appeal to my particular set of interests and that sort of thing. But and we were talking about this loosely beforehand. Like, I do understand that there is a target audience out there and it's sizable enough, obviously, because there's like Suda and all those guys have used numerous games of this similar sort of style and nature.
Well, this was the game that sort of brought into the West.
Yeah.
So he hadn't actually made a game that hit Western shores prior to Killer 7, and then he obviously followed that up with another one of my favourite games, No More Heroes, which is obviously now a lot more popular for because that game actually took off quite well.
Yeah, what else has he done since? So there was
Shadows of the Damned,
Lollipop
Chainsaw, and
see, I played Lollipop Chainsaw and I didn't mind that.
I mean, he's definitely got a style.
The gameplay, the moment-to-moment action of that was more in line with what clicks with me in terms of you've got that full 360 control within that space.
All right, so I'll move on to the next sort of section. Sorry if I'm looking down a bit. I did write a sort of meatier section for this one. So, because the next thing I want to talk about is the story. Because obviously, as I mentioned before, it is neo-noir, so it's very story-driven. Now, first question, did anything make any sense to you guys?
No.
The parts that don't, or the whole game that doesn't, does that bother you? The fact that you don't understand some of the game or large portions of the game, did that actually, looking back, are you like,
experience for
yeah, do you do, or you just like the moment-to-moment experience, was it like, okay, I'm doing this thing now?
Well, it ultimately, I guess, depends, regardless of who's talking, whether it's the three of us, you watching, whatever, like, it ultimately depends on what you're looking for, whatever you're looking for in a game. Like, I personally like a good, strong story in a game. Obviously, gameplay's king, but I do like a good, solid story in a game, and I don't know, to me, the whole plot was just, I don't know, ludicrous to me, really. And don't get me wrong, again, no, but I understand.
You're right, you're dead on.
I understand.
There's absolutely, and again, that touches on the thing.
Again, that's something they're kind of going for as well, and it's kind of links in with the elements of kind of Japanese culture in anime and all those sorts of stuff. Again, that's not me having a crack at that, because there is, similar to the gameplay stuff, there is a target audience there that will gravitate towards that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And it's just a case that it just doesn't gel with me. Damo.
It didn't hurt my experience. No, I didn't really understand it. Like, it took me a little while to get certain things. But in that being said, like, shit, just lost my train of thought. That's terrible. No dead air. What were we talking about?
The story.
The story, mate. Yeah, no. Like, it was really different. And I mean, this is coming from a guy who's watched ridiculous shit like Donnie Darko, and he just looked back on it and went, "Gotcha." No idea what the fuck is going on there. And that's fine, because it doesn't take away from the experience, because it makes you go back and discuss it with people.
Yeah.
Like, I think it...
let's be honest, you get 20 people's heads together and I'll still have no idea what happened in that game.
Oh, no, man.
In this game? That I've actually been... I'm exaggerating. You're not. That's actually true. You can go online, you can try and find people discussing the story, and there are wildly different understandings of what is actually going on. There's a weird god, semi-god plot that goes on for some people. There's obviously politics involved. There's all sorts of crazy shit.
I jumped on Wikipedia just to double check the story before we got started.
Well, okay.
To see what that said. And
so
when I Wikipedia, but
when I played it,
halfway through, don't.
When I played it, it was a few years ago now.
Yeah.
The whole way through, from start to finish, there was nothing. Like, it was pure discussion. Now, since then, Capcom's actually released a book that has gone into further detail, so there is a little bit more clear understandings of what it was actually happening. But for the most part, especially when I played it, the idea of there being no one true understanding of what was actually going on, it's actually really interesting. And so I actually wrote down here that in terms of Japanese storytelling, you look at something like Dark Souls, or again that I've been playing recently, Bloodborne. There is...
So I'm just like, if you have an image going on in there.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Well, now he's committed to it.
Now yeah, thanks.
So, with those games, the storytelling is very, very nebulous. I mean, you played through Bloodborne. Do you have any idea of what was going on in that game?
I mean, I'm a bit rusty, but no, not really.
Exactly. And it's that sort of...
Was it pushing its story in your face as much, in your opinion? Like, you sat Bloodborne and...
Absolutely.
Killer 7 side by side.
Yes.
That's the thing, I'm a bit rusty on Bloodborne.
Again, it's not so Bloodborne is not a story-driven game, but every single item in that game has a description that is relevant to the story.
Yeah.
Everything you pick up, whether it goes from being your healing items, through to your bullets, through to your Molotov cocktails, to your weapons, to everything has is a snippet from the story. Everything. So, I mean, you could argue that that's in part a story-driven experience, because every item in the game,
like
big or small,
environmental storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've also got your little notes, like your little lore notes and stuff. So yeah, I would argue that it absolutely is a story-driven experience. And by the same token, I have probably more an understanding of what was going on in Killer 7 than I do Bloodborne.
And you played Bloodborne more recently.
And I played it more recently. And obviously, look, I've looked online to try and find out what's going on in games like that. But I definitely think there's when the story leaves something to your imagination, you have the power to fill the gaps. And I think that's a very strong, especially if you're going for a story-driven experience, because you being able to tell the story in part, it's like, I think this is what was going on. And then you discuss it with someone else, and they're like, well, I think this is what was going on. And you get to have that discussion. Where if it's just a linear story of like...
the story is what it is, and that's it. There's no room
Fred went to the shops, and then zombie apocalypse happened. Like, you get it. Like, that's what happened. There's
Dead Rising.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Oh, well, in that case it was Frank, not Fred, but yeah, he went to the shops. Yeah, totally. And that's totally Dead Rising, yeah? So that's the thing, you understand what happened, right? There's no misinterpreting that. Whereas with games like this, and again, I do think it is inherent in Japanese storytelling, that, compared to, say, Western storytelling, that they're able to leave something to the viewer, and I think it's better for
they don't hold your hand through the experience as much, which is a credit to them. In the case of this, it was just that it wasn't an engaged narrative for me.
Yeah, sure. And you? What did you feel about that?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was cool. Like, you've
got to touch on the ending. You've got to touch towards the end. Spoiler free, but if you can touch on that, so those final two levels.
Because you kind of you brought up a couple of things you were discussing, like what people thought about it and stuff like that. And like when I played it through, it was like, I thought there was like a bit of politics going on, and then it was a bit of this going on, and then it was like the darkness versus the light, and then we just kept. It just, I don't know. Not that it didn't have like a solid story per se, because I mean it's like a bunch of little stories. It has an overarching theme, my eyes.
Plot theme, I guess.
Yeah.
But the end, man. Tell me about those end reveals.
Again, without diving into
I just...
that's pretty much the reaction I had too. I was like, wow. Holy shit.
I felt like... It's so Suda. It's so Suda.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, it's just like... You got no words, but you're just kind of like, I'm okay with this. Like, you don't put down your controller and like walk out of the room and just like, go see sunlight for the first, time in 3 days. Like, you kind of just sit there and you're like, I'm okay with this. Like, you accept it for what it was, and it's just so... Yeah, I don't have words. I apologize. If you play this, you're going to do the same thing.
You'll get it. Like, once you get towards the end, you'll sort of get it. What about you? How did you feel towards the end? Did the sort of final stage of that game, did it have any impact?
I think probably by that stage I'd become very cynical and jaded towards the whole thing. It didn't
checked out.
I had kind of mentally checked out. So,
at least you played it to completion.
Yeah.
So for me, those final levels where you find out some pretty, I suppose, important concepts about how everything actually is versus what you think it is for the whole time. I think it both answers a lot of questions and also raises a lot more. I mean, because there are a lot of characters in this game. So for those of you who don't know, it's called Killer 7 because you play as 7 different personalities that you can materialize one of and change to another sort of on the fly. So there are basically, you are running around as a team of 7 characters pretty much all the time. You have to, there are some in-game bits and pieces where you'll get a few for a level and then you have to sort of unlock the other ones by spending some of your currency that you get by killing enemies. So there is arguably a bit of a grinding element, but I mean, you do that just by killing enemies going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of...
it's pretty natural sort
Yeah,
of
it's definitely, it's very natural. And there are a lot of rooms where you can go in and you can do it. I like the aesthetic of the television aesthetic, where you've got like, from cutscene to gameplay or cutscene to cutscene, you'll have like a staticky sort of screen, and obviously the TV where it's like you've got the old sort of press the button and it has that sort of warm sparks flying type sound to it.
Yeah.
The sort of the old school TV where it's like you turn the dial and it changes from channel to channel. Like some of that was very sort of nostalgic for me. I mean, it's sort of borderline my time, like my parents had had an old TV that was a bit like that, and it sort of took me back a bit. But yeah, there's a lot of characters to the story as well, and sort of seeing how everything sort of comes together. For me, it answered a lot of questions and raised more, which I liked because I mean. It did again for me. It gave me some payoff, but it also gave me something to think about when I was done. Because obviously,
so it resonated with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it gave me something to do once I'd put my controller down. Obviously, there's killer rate mode and look, I actually think that games that have sort of additional modes after the game, like New Game Plus stuff like that, where in this particular one you've got an extra character you can play as, different difficulties, all that sort of stuff. It's a long game. I found. I don't know how long do you think it took you to play through?
I don't know. Like there was stages where I just kind of put it down, and I don't know. To subtract all that, I'm not exactly sure. Damo, how long would it take you? Roughly, I guess.
How many levels are there?
7, I believe. 7 or 8. They're long levels. They're not short.
I'm guessing it took me around 12, 15 hours?
Yeah, I would have said about 15 for me, yeah. 15,
there's certain little levels that have small, like, nothing massive or, like, super challenging puzzle things in them. Like, they
generally all have a pretty meaty chunk, and so you've got different locations, I think, and then some of the locations are small, but as part of the same level, you'll go to this sort of larger area, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You'll start in a larger area and then go to a smaller area to sort of finish off that level.
Yeah.
So for me, I found that there were a lot of levels where I was like, and again, this is taking me back a while, but I remember being like, oh cool, I've just done this huge portion, and I get to this new area, and I was like, oh cool, a new area, and then I realised, oh okay, it hasn't actually cut to next level yet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh cool, this is still part of the same episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it did feel like it was broken up into kind of like an episodic format.
Yeah, and that was kind of cool. But like how like in some levels, like to go find an item or something like that, it's like, I don't know, it was something about water and plants or something like that, and like, you kind of had
from today, yeah.
You kind of, you piece it together and it's like, oh yeah, you put the water in the plant. Or there was that one where it's like you're walking past and there's all these different movie posters, and then to solve it, like you've got to realise like what each poster had that key that's in relation to like the riddle kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's nothing hard.
You've got the guy who has the mask, who you can shoot the mask and he gets real pissy at you and he takes some of your currency to like help you solve the puzzle or something like that. Which is pretty cool. Alright, so I'll move on to the next sort of portion, and this one I'm happy to sort of fatten up a little bit because I think it's a very open question. So what would you say is this game's biggest strength and this game's biggest weakness? Oh, come on, you're not that jaded. No need to be a dick about it.
Well, it was more. Yeah, I had to kind of sift through my own bias there but again, the visual style I think is great. So
you'd say the visual style.
The visual style is probably its greatest strength there, and its greatest weakness to me is still that sort of clunky gameplay. But
the control scheme.
Oh, no, maybe even some of the voice stuff. Like, I mean, even with the menu, with that cackling laugh, just infuriates. I think, and it's again, that's a bit like.
So you say infuriates? I had that as my text message tone.
Yeah,
I don't even know how.
And for years, I had no idea what the hell was going on when you played it. I thought, okay, this bloke's a knob, but
now you can see, like,
truth comes out.
It's kind of a haunting laugh, and that's why I like it. And I remember it used to freak the hell out of you. It used to go off and used to jump out of your chair.
But yeah, just in general, like it's just weird sort of dialogue. But again, it's part of the style that they're going for. It just doesn't gravitate to me.
So you would say that is it gameplay or storytelling? You would say.
I guess I'll probably revert to the gameplay just because it's personal preference when it comes to those other ones.
Oh, you want to do it?
Yeah.
My strength was It sounds really dumb, but the cutscenes. The cutscenes, it felt like they were just gems. Like, it was the gem of the game to watch these crazy events unfold before you start at the level sometimes. Like, the one with the dude... Oh.
The two guys?
No, not in the car. And it's like, the crazy fucking, like, 3-dog almost talking to him. And it was just insane, like... he's in
The four-winged angel from the first level.
Oh, yeah, oh.
The conversation between Harmon and Kunalan in the first level is...
I, hands down, have to admit, that laugh he does when he flies off is my new number one laugh. It, like, badass crazy laughs. And I'm talking, like, Crispin Freeman from... Ghetto Zero, or I think Robo Zero, or whatever. Anyone look him up. He's the voice of Alucard from Hellsing. He did this crazy, like, insane laugh. This tops it. It's just hands down, like, oh, fuck. Like, goosebumps on my arms now. Like,
it's pretty good. I'd love to say something. Some of the dialogue for me is great. I know it didn't resonate with you at all, but
again, that's
some of the lines just have some serious weight to them, just because they're just cool fucking lines, man. Like, I mentioned a couple to you guys just before we started, but there's a whole host of more. I mean, look, you could argue that some of the when you get a critical shot on one of the enemies, they'll rattle off a line, and it is the same line every time. So if you don't like the dialogue already, it's probably going to grate on you. But for me, like, some of those just like there's one character, and I know you both know it, the Spanish guy who's just the "you're fucked." Is just like, it's one of those things that I was...
even when you were playing it before, just like...
It grated? Did it
no,
grate?
no, that didn't.
I could hear that just the whole way through the game. It didn't even bother me at all.
Yeah,
but I could totally understand if it grated. For some people, hearing repeated dialogue in games is never great. But for me, this one was fine.
Yeah.
I felt that... So for me, I actually think that the gameplay is probably its strength. And for me, the reason behind that is purely because it is so vastly different. So because it is, and again, it's a narrative game. You've got a lot of those coming out now, where you look at games like The Walking Dead or any of the Telltale games, really, and you have to wonder. By comparison, there's significant amounts of gameplay in Killer 7.
No, I agree with that.
Comparative to
there's
a
not
lot
much
of
in the
those.
Telltale games at all, but I mean they are going for slightly different things in terms of the way they do it. But there is a lot more meat to the bone of Killer 7.
Arguably, there are both story-driven games.
Yeah,
like this plays very much like a noir story where you are following directly, very close to the main character, or in this case, characters' actions, and you're seeing a lot of that firsthand. So it doesn't have the third person or the narration that a lot of noir would have, but it keeps you very sort of up close and personal with the characters. So to do that, like, how do you make a game that is a full game? And there are a lot of puzzles in this game. There are a lot of, now whether they're convoluted or not, that's up to you guys to decide, and yourself, obviously, ourselves.
Nah, there's just one person.
There's just one person. You're right. Thank you.
Tell your friends.
Please come back.
Yeah. Tell your friends or friend, whatever. But there are a lot of puzzles there, and for better or worse, there's a lot of sort of roaming around the levels. It didn't ever really feel aimless. And I showed you guys before where it's actually got a tell where you've actually been in a direction or not. So it actually helps to walk you through. Now, I'm pretty sure that I think there's like a help thing somewhere that tells you that. It may not have been super forward. I actually read a lot of the dialogue for the game, or sort of the additional information like the manual and stuff like that, back in my day where games came with manuals rather than just tutorializing everything.
Well, they all still have manuals now. It's just those digital things that are on disc.
Yeah, filth. But yeah, they don't have the same flair.
Yeah.
They don't have the same sort of writing. Whereas you'd have like a team of dudes just putting that together and give it its own sort of flavour. But anyway, like that aside, I felt that the gameplay, just because it was so radically different, but I feel like it nailed all the things it wanted to do. For me, the controls got to a point, and you guys saw me playing it today. I haven't touched the game since probably 2011, 2012, and I was able to pick that game up and just, like, you saw it, you said it before, very fluid.
Yeah.
So for me, that was ingrained, because for me it was just, you hold the A button almost always. You just keep running. When you hit an intersection, you just flick your control stick, and it's automatic. And then, when you hear the laugh, you do your almost a cover shooter style where it's like gunner, ready to go, have a look around, nothing, keep going. So for me, that's how that played out, and I felt that for me that's what I wanted from those characters. I mean, they're supposed to be hitmen, so you want your reflexes, you want your cool stylish animations, which I think they had a lot of too. For me, the biggest weakness, I'd probably have to say that. Yeah, look, I'd actually have to say that the cutscenes are actually some of the weakest, but purely because I think that they could have tied them together a little better. Like, if this game was, say, a Tarantino film, there would be a lot of smash cuts, which I don't think is his style. It's in the vein of a Tarantino film, but it doesn't have that same sort of fluid style that he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you leave off from characters, it doesn't feel like you've ended that tiny little arc. There were just sort of breaks in between you doing stuff in this game that I felt like you could probably have worked from that into where it leaves you off, and you can either start playing or go into your next cutscene. I feel like that probably could have worked a little better. The story is the story, or lack thereof, whatever you feel. Like, this game is a love or hate game. Yeah. You have no middle ground with this game. So that is actually my next point, segue of the day. For love or hate, do you think this game will stick with you? Will it have a lasting impression, good or bad?
The laugh will stick with me.
Well, yeah, the laugh will stick with you. It'll haunt your dreams. But
so I guess
the game, will the game as a whole? Do you think that will actually stick with you? Will you look back and say, all right, that was like you said, the cell shading was good, the animation was this, the story was way out there, the controls were very different. I mean, these days you've got a lot of indie games coming out, and they're exploring that territory of vastly different controls. You and I were at PAX last year. We saw a bunch of indie games where, like, I was rolling down hills as a shark in one of them. You know what I'm talking about. Edith Finch, that's right. You look at that and you're like, okay, well, if you think about it that way, like, and you got a lot of your walking simulators these days.
Yeah.
That's not hugely different from what Killer 7 does. Killer 7 just puts you on a rail. That's the only real difference.
I think the thing that might have, and for me, it's probably not. I mean, I can't know to be sure, but I feel like it's probably not going to stick with me. But that opinion might have been different had I played it when it first came out, because because of that, and mostly for the visual component, the art style and that sort of thing. If I'd have experienced that way back when, it might have, for me, been all these games were informed by Killer 7, this sort of thing, because I could see the progression that it wasn't the first, but kind of started.
Sure.
Now that I'm coming back to it, and I've seen all these other things that have come before, whether it's Zelda or whether it's Jet Set Radio, or then just various other indies and stuff that have come along the way. And then, so I think it's just, as a result of that, and just the fact that I didn't get to play it back then, it's not going to resonate with me like that. But I can absolutely see why it would.
Okay.
Had I...
Well, let me ask you one question just before I go over to you to ask the same question. If I was to mention the name Killer 7 to you a year down the line, how much of this game will come flooding back? Again, for better or worse? Do you think it'll just leave your brain, or do you think it'll be burnt in there?
No, I think again, I can't know, but
fair enough.
I mean, that's just the nature of it. We can't really know.
Sure.
But
I think
feel like it's the sort of thing that elements of it might hang around, but
sure. Well, see, I've had the luxury of being able
visuals.
to come back to it years later and just loading it up and just like it all coming flooding back like immediately. So, Damo, tell me.
Yeah.
Will this game stick with you? Will it leave a lasting impression? Has it already left a lasting impression? You played it a little while ago.
There'll definitely be elements there that will always stick with me. Like bits and pieces here and there. Yeah, like the laugh and the controls. Even just like the areas and things like that. Like, I don't know about even like character design, things like that. There'll be like bits and pieces that stick around that like I'll just sit there and I'll go, oh, it's kind of like Killer 7. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'll be playing something else, and if there's something that has been slightly inspired or just had a similar feel, it'll be like there'll always be that there. And I don't know if that's just because my library of games that I've played is not as expansive as others out there, or if it's just like it's one of those games that will I mean it is. It's a left of field game. Like there's no ifs or buts about it. Like, it's not like your mainstream game that was out at that time. Like, even not for GameCube. Like, it's just such. It sounds like such a weird thing to say. Like, I know it wasn't exclusive to GameCube, but it's just
It
like
was for a while.
It was originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the Capcom
it did
5
eventually
was
come to
originally. So the Capcom 5 was originally designed to, like, liven up what Capcom felt was a stagnant industry, and they were all supposed to be GameCube exclusives. Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive for the longest time.
Kami even said that he was going to self-harm in some way if it ever came to PlayStation, which he obviously didn't do. It was a tongue-in-cheek comment, but but it did eventually jump across, and as did Killer 7, as did Beautiful Joe,
I believe.
Yeah,
I think the
feel like
sequel
Beautiful
might
Joe
have.
did. And that was mostly because the PS2 went on to sell 150 million units, and the GameCube did not.
No, it absolutely did not.
I think less than 30. So,
Yeah.
when there's so many potential buyers over there, you just
Oh, of course.
you got to jump across.
And in Japan, I think like practically most households would have one.
Yeah.
If you think about those numbers, I mean, that's
DVD players, bro.
Yeah.
There were a lot of
that's true.
sales originally for DVD, but
Sure. But I mean, even the music, like some of the
Oh, that track!
like Rave On,
It's like,
the one right before the boss fights.
and it's like the worst thing you only get. There's like there's one song, and you get like a 20-minute snippet of it, because by the time you move to the next area, it's gone. You're like,
Can I go back there? Can I?
Yeah, sometimes I would just sit there because I'm like, I don't want this song to end right now. I just want to listen to this and see where it goes.
Was it Rave On? I'll play it for you later.
Yeah.
And you have to tell me if that's the one.
Yeah.
I know it might actually be. I think it's the one where you're in that sort of nightclub section before the boss fight. Is that the one?
Yeah. There you go. You see, knocked it out straight away.
Rave On. That song is on my iPod.
No.
Like,
tell
joke.
people to look it up specifically. Because
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely. Look, they actually did make a formalized OST for it, which has all of the soundtrack for it. A lot of it's actually really great ambience music. I don't know what you guys felt about the ambience, but when you actually listen to the soundtrack, you'll find that there's a lot more sound than you actually realize, and then you actually go back and you listen to some of the tracks and you play the game again, which I did a few years ago. And yeah, like it's totally all there, and it's much better off for it. I wouldn't say it's its greatest strength, but because it is such like a lot of the soundtrack is just pure ambience. I didn't really feel like it was worth sort of bringing up, because there are fantastic tracks like that one in particular, and there are a few sort of chiptune songs in there that are amazing. That again, I had that as my ringtone for I don't even know how many years. Yeah, I think I only changed it. In fact, I think it was not my current ringtone, but my previous ringtone. I think I changed it just recently to Kraid's theme from Metroid, because I mean it's Kraid's theme and it's from Metroid. Yeah. But again, so its soundtrack it's a weird one, because it is a lot of it is just mood music, or like not sound effects, but like it just sort of like wind blowing along with sort of like light piano or something like that. It's just again it's different and strange, kind of like the game, and it fits in really well, I thought. But I just had to I wanted to know if it was that song, because it is that, because that song's great. All right, well look, I pretty much got out of you guys what I wanted to say. I expected that you, out of the three of us, would not be the one.
Yeah, we kind of forecast this before, and I think even we kind of half teased that in the last recording.
We might have done, but
yeah.
Yeah, look, for me, I mean, look, I don't think I've been swayed at all. How do you think?
Well,
by this guy's negativity, we've been swayed.
it is up. I was still constructive.
No,
as much as possible.
You were only half jaded. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then, look, coming out of the last one, I can't exactly talk, can I? So, but yeah,
look, that's the nature of it, though. There's always going to be things that kind of.
That's the real thing. See, that's the thing I really like about, or one of the many things I really like about this game, is that it is absolutely love or hate. There is definitely no middle ground. No one will pick this up and be like, yeah, it was okay. You'll either be like, what was that game? I need to get my brain around it.
It's very much a binary response. It's yes or no.
Or it's just like, no, my body rejects it. You know what I mean?
My body's not ready.
Yeah, my body's absolutely not ready. And look, I think you'll find, I think we were talking about this a month or two ago, a lot of what we found online of people who just rejected it, they rejected it maybe a couple hours in. And they didn't actually let the experience sink in.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you mentioned that you were a little jaded at some point in, and you'd sort of checked out.
Yeah.
Which,
I grounded out for the sake of this.
And
I think
I
had it
think
not
that
been for this
probably-
podcast, I probably would have just gone, nope, that's it, done. Give it back to you. I don't want to see this
and I think
again.
that's probably that probably did a disservice for it, because I feel like as the game sort of wound down, like it got towards its ending levels, for me it got more tense and it got more like stuff started to click together, like I was saying a little earlier. So for me, because it did resonate in that way, I think the end of the game was a lot better for it. And that's the thing, and I think that people that, if they do start to mentally check out, that's it. It is love or hate, and if you hate, you won't enjoy the sort of the latter half of it. But if you like it, the payoff, like right at the end, even the payoff is, great. So I think I'll throw back to you to wrap this one up if you like.
All right. Ooh, jeez. All right. Well,
I'll throw this one back to you, Dick, so you can finish puberty and then wrap
boyish
it up.
10-year-old Paul.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the end of another Player2 Video Games Club.
Wait. Oh, I know you just have to wrap it up.
You got something else?
Sequel. Like, would you like to see a sequel? Isn't that like a question we always ask?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
no.
Sure.
No?
I don't think I would like to see a sequel to this game. I was mentioning today I'd love to see a HD remake, because I think that that'd be excellent. I would love to see more games from Suda and Grasshopper where he's more in control, because I feel like his last few haven't been that, because like you look at, say, this game, you look at No More Heroes, the crazy is there. You start looking at Shadows of the Dam, the crazy is kind of there. You look at Lollipop Chainsaw, the offensiveness is there, which is cool, don't get me wrong, I like that, and like the cool music is there, but the weirdness isn't there. And then you look at Killer is Dead, and it's not great. So I think more stuff like Killer 7 and No More Heroes from like another Grasshopper game, another like classic Grasshopper game would be fantastic. Whether it's set in the Killer 7 universe or not, I don't really mind. But more stuff like this, more cool, cel-shaded fun and insanity from Goichi Suda would be great.
Yep. Yeah, no, I feel the same. HD remake would be really cool, because I think
it's been long enough.
it has.
Games have been out for 5 years.
HD remakes are great for some people to get on board on a game that it's not as easy to get anymore, or play on a console that's soon. So.
Or that they just may have missed. They may have missed the boat.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you look at how many different remakes of another Capcom 5 game, Resident Evil 4, there are. I don't even have that many fingers. Like,
but it is a little bit different with Resident Evil, because Capcom was just trying to extract every last cent out of their Resident Evil fans.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's like it is the same Resident Evil 4. Like, don't talk that up. Like 5 and everything past 5 are bad.
Yeah.
4 was like the last really, really good one, but that's been on every platform
That's
for the last 10 years. So like you've got GameCube port or GameCube original, PS2 port. You've got Xbox 360 port. I think even an Xbox original port maybe. PC port multiple times.
Oh, the Wii even had the one.
The Wii port with the weird waggle run that's retarded. And that's the thing, like a game like this I think would be really suited to it. I don't know what its sales numbers were like back then, but I think that this has a very devoted cult following. I think you would get a lot of a high sales figure early.
Yeah.
I don't know about long term, but I mean, what were the sales figures for, I don't know, Devil May Cry collection?
Yeah,
Probably
no
not.
idea.
Probably not huge, but you had all the people that love those games pick it up, and then that was it. Its sales time was done. And I think this game would do really well on the same platform.
Right.
Right, now I'll wrap it up without my voice going on me halfway through. So that was another episode of the Player2 Video Games Club. If you want to see any of the previous episodes, just hit us up on YouTube.
Or here.
I'm not creating annotations.
Check the website below.
Yeah, you'll find the site there.
Or if you're on the website already, check.
You got to stop doing this stuff though, man. You kill me.
Hit back on the browser, go back to the episode list. I don't know.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Create a playlist.
Send Paul an email asking for the link.
And you'll be able to find it on the website as well. So you can hit the site up at player2.net.au.
Yes.
You can find Player2 on Twitter at Player2AU. You can find me at Paul James P2 on Twitter. You don't use it.
I don't social network because
he's got it. You can find him there, but don't bother messaging because he won't reply.
That's true.
Damo,
I'm on Taco's Talks at Twitter, I think, or Taco Talks. I don't know. You'll just see my face and like 6 retweets. That's me.
That's it. Go ahead and play Killer 7. Tell us what you think, and we'll see you next time for our next game, which will be SteamWorld Dig.
Yes, I'm glad to get into that. I 2 years ago and still haven't touched it. I need to get into it.
So we'll see you then. See you later.
See you next month.